I remember, I guess it's just nostalgia. I remember where I was when I was watching these episodes.
They wrote some like a masterpiece. I think it was perfect.
Is this not a case of they revealed it too early?
But he uses them as furniture. When was our first episode together?
Of
just recording.
I guess it's coming up on, because we met on December, like early December 2018.
Yeah, wow.
So our 3-year anniversary. Oh wow. Aww. We doing dinner or something, or I just realized I'm sitting in like a therapist chair right now.
So tell me about your what you're feeling. How have you been?
I've been doing great, honestly. Well, better than I was last year, that's for sure.
May I suggest laying off the alcohol? I think that might solve a little bit of your problems.
You have to boss me.
Dude,
what does that say? I'm a king, baby.
I had my first beer like in public because my boss took me out to dinner. It was like me, him, and like his girlfriend, and he was like, oh, are you like, you know, gonna get something to drink now that you're like 21? I think this was like my birthday party, literally. And he was like,
your boss took you? Wow.
Yeah, it was like I think I worked the day after my birthday, and he was like, yeah, we should all go and like you know, celebrate your birthday. Actually, there was another coworker that was there too. But then I was like, oh, now that I'm 21, I could order something. But I mean, when you're, you know, when it's like your first time drinking out in public, it's like, what do you get? You know, unless you've been to like parties and you're like one of those guys that like breaks the rules and whatnot. You know,
the law.
I'm like a good kid, so I'm like, I don't know. I've never partied really. I mean, I've been to parties, but I don't really go all out like that, you know? So it's like it was my first time getting a drink, so I'm like, I don't know what to get. I mean, my boss knew. He was like, I think you should get this.
I know the good stuff.
Oh, do you? Oh, so you're... So you drink?
No,
what is it? Is it 18 over there that you can drink?
19. So next year,
19.
I'll be shit-faced.
Actually, that's not true. The first time I had a drink was when I was 18. I think I told you this. I went to Cancun over the summer. It was like summer 2018, I want to say. And we pretty much stayed at the hotel like the entire time. Oh. But it was just because it was like storm season or whatever. Like we couldn't really go into the beach or whatnot, so it was like we couldn't really do much. But at the same time, like it would have been nice to just go explore like around the country or like just around the city or whatever. But anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, my first drink. So in our like hotel or like where we were staying, there's like a restaurant area. You know, you have to dress like appropriately. I had like a sleeveless shirt on, and I was walking in with like my dad and my sister, and they stopped me and they go,
"Sir, we don't allow guns here."
No, they said I'm sorry, you can't wear that. And I'm like, I'm being dress coded? I thought that only happened to girls.
These pythons.
I thought that only happened to girls. You know, like, actually, have you been to public school?
Yeah, it was rough.
It was pretty early, right? So like,
middle school is like... Sorry.
You said middle school?
Yeah, middle school is when I really first saw it happening.
The dress coding, yeah, it's weird because it's like they put a restriction on like the students, like, you know, and what they're wearing, when the problem is, you know, the people that are thinking of it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that was the excuse then, because it's like, well, girls can't wear tank tops because then the boy behind you is gonna be like, whoa, and it's like, well, then that sounds like his fucking problem.
Well,
like,
actually, you're wrong about that because really the revealing part, you know, is what's in front, and you know, the student is facing the teacher, and the teacher is what's seeing everything. If you want to think about it like that, the student behind you is not going to see anything but a back.
I don't know. I just remember that was the reason why they were like, because like there'd be girls that are like, okay, this is bullshit. Why do I have to, like, why is this my problem kind of thing?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's like, I mean, I know we're in middle school and we're a bunch of horny teenagers, but can't you just, keep it in your pants kind of thing?
Yeah. And I was also going to say, like, I remember it was like my junior year of high school, and I think it was like getting towards summer, so we were about to get out of school, and I had on, like, another tank top. Like, I'm always wearing tank tops. And some girl, she was like, hey, that's not part of the dress code. And I'm like, they're not gonna stop me because I'm a guy. I'm too cool. And not to be like completely like sexist or anything, but they really do only stop like girls.
Yeah, it's just the unfortunate truth.
I've never seen a guy get dress coded, like, ever. Like, torn jeans, like, you'll have a guy and a girl both wearing ripped jeans, and then the only one sent to like the office would be the girl. Yeah. It's just weird. I don't know. It's not me that wrote them up. I'm just stating that. Why is it, they get written up?
Yeah, I don't know. Public school in general is a whole bunch of...
Maybe I wanted to get written up, you know what I mean? But no, they did it.
Public school in general is a whole bunch of baloney. That's not even getting into the actual, like, education of it all. Like, you're out of high school. How much is like
high
school do you actually
we're not even talking about... We're not even getting to the education part of school, and it's already bad. You know what I mean?
Like, we could talk the next 4 hours about that. But I guess I never really did. Like, hi everyone.
Yeah.
I'm Matthew or Hydrus. This is Davis. And
hello.
Welcome to our podcast. Sorry to completely cut you off from that. I just kind of realized that I've been recording for 9 minutes and I never once said hi.
You know what? I think that's our vibe.
That's
just how we do it.
I'm cool with that. So yeah, welcome to our podcast. We don't really have a super set in stone schedule, but we're aiming for every weekend. It's the Shumatsu podcast. I guess you would have already known that by the channel name, but that's okay. We're going to mainly talk about anime, but as you saw for the last 10 minutes, we're not going to exclusively talk about that.
Because that's just boring, Yeah,
there's plenty of anime to talk about, but also there are other things in life, unfortunately.
Instead of talking about education for 4 hours, we thought it'd be better if we talked about anime for 4 hours.
Not saying we couldn't, because we probably, we almost talked for 3 hours yesterday or the other day about anime, so it's definitely doable.
It's definitely possible. But today, speaking of anime, we're gonna just reel it back and talk about some of our top picks and maybe not our top picks.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it.
stuff that we like, and also stuff that we didn't like, and it's not necessarily in any order. Maybe Matthew's is. I'm not too sure.
Mine is
vaguely in order.
Yeah,
it's close enough.
It's kind of in order. I don't know. It's sort of to be determined kind of thing.
I will say mine is not in any order, although it would technically be in order, since the stuff that I thought of first came to mind first and would thus have a bigger impact in my mind. I guess you could say that is in a particular order.
This is a therapy session. Get into psychological stuff. So who should start with it? I'm gonna probably start my honorable mentions of stuff.
Yeah, actually, I guess we could start there. We could just go back and forth if you want.
Okay, so yeah, I can start it off.
Yeah.
So my honorable mentions are in no particular order. These are very much just things I just kind of wrote about. I put half of these as we were talking, 20 minutes ago. Just kind of stuff that I remembered as I was going along. One of the earlier animes that I watched was Recovery of an Mmo Junkie. And that's
right.
sort of I guess it's slice of life. The reason I watched it was because it seemed kind of like, how do I put this? Like a non-horny version of SAO. So I was like, okay, this seems interesting, which is funny because it's like a romance anime. But it's very, very cute. Basically, it's this like 30-year-old woman that is like, she's not very happy with her job, and she's like lonely, and she plays a lot of MMOs. And she jumps in the game as a character, and then she meets up with a group, and then in that group there's another character that's in the real world. It's played by a dude that she knew once in real life, or they worked in the same building, something along those lines. I don't quite. It's been almost a year since I watched this show. It's a very short show. But anyway, so they like meet in the game, and they become best friends of the game, and they talk for all this time. And then eventually like, oh hey, maybe we should meet in real life. And then there's another guy that's kind of overhead that's sort of connecting the two, and then eventually they meet up, and then they fall in love in real life, and it's very, very cute. Yeah, I don't know. It was very out of like left field of what I normally watch. But there was also kind of a point when I first started watching anime that I just wanted to watch stuff that was like, I was just looking for short shows basically. And this episode, I think it's 10 episodes long. It's a really short show.
I do notice you do tend to sway more towards the shorter ones, just because they're quicker, easier to binge, you know?
Yeah, the longest show I've watched has like 80 episodes, or no, I guess 100 now. And even that was like a daunting task. I've yet to watch.
I did want to interject with a small joke as you were explaining the plot of Recovery of an Mmo Junkie. I was gonna say, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is How I Met Your Mother. But I think it's like 2 minutes too late for that. But I just wanted to throw that in.
No,
better late than never.
Yeah, I guess, good point. The animation was pretty simple because it's not like a battle anime. It's just like a bunch of characters sort of just talking. There's some stuff because it's like I liked how there's a very distinct difference between the stuff that's in the real world and stuff that's in the game. Like that they definitely had, like, because obviously the game had a lot more color. And I think the animation looked better then. They actually had some different voice actors for the characters in the game and the characters in real life. So it's like, I don't know, I because it also, I mean, it was my first slice of life anime, so it was nice to see, how do I put this? I'm losing my whole train of thought now.
Would you say it's nice to see something in a different light?
Yeah, it was cool to see it a bit more grounded, because it's like, this is something that like could probably happen in real life. I don't know how often it does. I don't play MMOs. But
that's like, I feel like that's like a 1 in a million. I think when I was younger, I played this MMO called L Sword. Actually, it's still ongoing. It's like a 2.5 dimensional game. So like it has sort of like that 2D aspect, kind of like MapleStory, but then
I was gonna say, is it like MapleStory?
Yeah, it's pretty much like MapleStory, but then the whole world kind of it's kind of 3D-ish. So some of the tiles would kind of like move. The camera rotates as like you move along paths and stuff. So it's not just a linear line like MapleStory is. But anyways, I played that MMO like when I was like maybe 10 years old, and I remember there was like I think there's still like a marriage system in the game. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So I like tried to get 2 of my characters, you know, to like a respectable level so that they could get married. And then I was like, yeah, this is gonna be like a really cool time. Sorry, that was really bad.
No. What was I gonna say? I don't remember now. Oh crap! I don't know what I was gonna say now. Oh no.
Something I wanted to ask was I know you've talked about like how was it Sword Art Online was your first anime?
Yeah, I watched that back in like 2014. I didn't even know it was an anime.
You just thought it was a cartoon? Huh, I
just
really
thought it was
like
another,
this
because
cartoon.
I didn't know, because like now it's a whole debate about sub and dub. I didn't know what that was. I think I just saw a couple clips on YouTube. And then
And
whenever
you
it
just
was
figured it
added
was like
on,
a cartoon.
yeah, then whenever it was added on Netflix, because it was on it's been on Netflix for a long time. But yeah, I watched most of that. So that was the first anime I watched. And then I rewatched it again back in October. Sorry, last October. I didn't just rewatch it. And I got caught up completely. And I've read a little bit of like the light novel now. Sword Art's actually on my semi dislike list, which is weird because
Oh wow, really?
I could talk about Sword Art for far too long because I have such a weird like love hate relationship with that show because I there's so many things about it because I keep saying it, but like it had so much potential to be a good show.
I think that's where you want to be when it comes to like animes that you like. You have you have some sort of there is going to be like a bias, right? Because it's like one of your favorites. You've liked it, you've enjoyed it, especially with like a show that's like the first one that you finished or like seen. It kind of has like that feeling for you. But then where it really comes in is where you understand like the parts that you don't like as well. Like I like this show, because it does really it's like my favorite, but I also see like the downs of it, and I think that's really important when you're talking about anime. Even if it's your favorite, it doesn't mean that it's perfect.
Yeah, when I was younger, because like when I was younger, I always wanted it because I'm like, oh, Kirito's so cool because he's like the coolest and he does everything. And to me, that's what made a good character was like you have this one character that's a god at everything, and now I'm like, I fucking hate characters like that.
Yeah, when you get older, you start to realize like maybe perfection isn't really like the best. You want to see like the flaws because it kind of makes the character.
It's boring. Like Sword Art now. It's so because it like moments will shine through where I'm like, hey, this show isn't so bad, and then it'll get right back to like I saw it on Twitter recently because they just announced the movie coming out, the progressive movie coming out December 3rd, I think, in Japan, and someone in the comments, they were like, oh wow, Sword Art's probably gonna start off great until a character gets sexually assaulted and Kirito remembers he's Jesus, and it's like that is kind of how every season goes.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's always going really well, and then it's like almost like Reki Kawahara remembers that he's like, I haven't like no one's been sexually assaulted yet. I gotta get on that. And it's a damn shame because it's like because you'll see videos, I've seen so many of them now where people like rewrite sections of Sword Art, and it's like you'll see things where they keep a lot of it intact because it's like they could have it just with a few changes. I don't think with a few changes I don't think it'd be a perfect show, but it'd be a hell of a lot better than it is. So it's like I don't know, they were so close to doing something good with it. I also think the pacing of that show is terrible. Like they speed run through like 2 years in like a couple of episodes, and then you look at something like My Hero Academia, they've spent 100 episodes in like 2 months. No, it's since the school year, so it's been like 5 or 6 months, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, I don't know, definitely a bit jarring there.
I mean, you want to talk about bad pacing?
Oh yeah,
I do want to mention it. I don't want to get on the topic yet, unless you want to. But like
I just went through 2 of my choices in one go, and I feel really bad now.
No, you're fine. But like, speaking of shows with like really bad pacing, I just wanted to mention specifically season 2 of Promised Neverland, and like Matthew already knew that I was gonna mention this, because we were gonna. I think Promised Neverland season 2 was on both of our like not top pick list, or not. It's not really a list. It's just like maybe 1 or 2 that we didn't like.
I haven't watched season 2 yet. I read the manga a little bit a while ago, and I remember the manga being really good. and then when I talked to you about how the show went, or after you'd finish it, and like I think I mentioned a couple of arcs, and you were like, "That never happens." So, but also just the fact that it's 11 episodes and the show's done, and I think there's like 20 volumes, so it's like,
bit of a warning for our listeners or viewers. I think I will spoil a little bit because I do want to talk about like how some of the pacing was really bad. So if you haven't seen Promised Neverland or plan on watching it and you don't want to be spoiled, I do recommend you kind of, mute or like turn the volume down for like just a little bit. I have no idea how long I'm going to be rambling on for, but we'll see. I am going to spoil some stuff. So with season 1, right, it was incredible. Like within, I think it was 12 episodes, they wrote some like a masterpiece. I think it was perfect. Like
it was perfectly paced. Yeah, at least in my opinion.
And I kind of understand like the time frame. Actually, no. The time frame of season 1 is not as long as the time frame of season 2. Is that right? Like the events in season 2 occur like in a longer span of time than season 1.
Yes, definitely.
Because like I think season 1 was like what, a little over a year? Was it a year? Or was it 6 months? So. One of those. They had
I think it started out in spring, and by the end it was like fall. Because weren't there leaves falling?
I'm not too sure, but anyways, we were talking about like the pacing of it, and the pacing of season 1 was like no one had anything to say about the pacing of it, at least not that I know of. But
nothing negative to say about the pacing. You mean?
Yeah, when we're talking about season 2, right? I watched the first episode of season 2. I was pretty excited. Like, oh yeah, like they're gonna try to escape to like the outside world, like the human world, and the first episode was all right, and I thought to myself, it's gonna get better, right? But then as I was watching the season, it just felt like it was getting worse. I was kind of getting lost. It might have been because I was, waiting for an episode each week. So like within that time, I like forgot what happened in the last episode. But also it didn't keep me on track. I kind of felt lost in some places, but I think it's because they cut out a lot of stuff. Like a few minutes ago, Matthew, you were talking to me about, what was it? Golden Pond or something?
Yeah, the Goldie Pond battle arc, I think it was called.
I literally have no idea what that is, and I don't know if it's because I have a bad memory or if it's because the show didn't put it in at all, but I think the show, like, they definitely cut corners.
Sorry. I think, I was just about to mention that, because I think, didn't you mention that Norman meets up with the group, like, almost immediately? Like, I think by looking at the thumbnails, it's like episode 3 or 4, he's back. And in the manga,
he just
it was a while.
Suddenly appeared.
I think they were... It's been a while since I've read the manga, so bear with me here. I'm pretty sure by the time they meet up, they're all like 16. So I think it's been like 3 or 4 years in the gap between when they last saw him die, or when they saw him die rather, and see him again, because he meets up with a new group, because he goes to a different facility. So it's, I don't know. It seems like they, like you said, they kind of, because also, I could be wrong here, but didn't you say that Isabel died at the same time, or died at the end of the show too?
My memory is not gonna be like the best here, but I do remember that when they're on the verge of escaping, like the door is literally right there. The kids are stopped by Isabel and the other mothers, right? Mm-hmm. And then that one guy shows up. The guy with the white hair. Is he like a scientist or something?
I don't know. I don't remember now.
There's some guy who I guess is working with like the mothers to help like produce all the, I guess you can say, cattle children. But anyways, so so he shows up, and then Emma's like having this heartfelt conversation with Isabel, you know, and then suddenly Isabel like turns her gun on like the guy that she was working with. She was like, I don't want to work with you anymore. And then suddenly all the mothers just turn their guns on this guy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, this is pretty good. That was probably like the best part of the show. Even though I hate the show, that's probably the best part, was in like Isabel, you know, having that good in her heart, was like, no, I'm not going to let this happen to my children. He turns the guns on this guy. But anyways,
might have. Sorry, I was going to say, because I should probably mention that when I say I read them, I essentially skimmed through it online. So there's things that I remember and there's things that I don't. Because I remember Isabel, I'm pretty sure in the manga she died protecting the kids from a demon. And then they had a heartfelt conversation. She was dying because it was like, oh, I do care about you guys, but I was kind of forced to raise you as food.
Oh, I think you might be right about that. But I think that the whole idea was like she was protecting the kids, you know, as like a distraction while they like escape. Either that or like she was like dying while Emma was talking to her. But yeah, that's probably the best part of season 2, was just that little bit right there. But then the pacing got worse after that. So they actually, not everyone makes it out. Whoa, that was a huge spoiler. Not everyone leaves to the human world. Emma, Norman, and Ray, you know, the 3 kids, the 3 smart kids, they actually stay, and their objective is to just free all the other kids.
Oh, right. Did Emma lose her memory in the show? Because I'm pretty sure she lost her memory in the manga, and they tried to bring her.
Was it like in the middle, or was it like after they escaped?
I think it was towards the end.
I wouldn't remember that. I just know, actually, that might be just like my bad memory, but I definitely don't remember. But it could be a detail they left out.
I thought she forgot her memory. She left it on the floor.
I know she lost her ear. That's what I know. You know, when she cut her ear off in in season 1.
Good. Great.
But,
well, just from what I've heard about season 2, because I remember when that was coming out, there was a lot of outrage about it, and I've yet to watch it because I've been very hesitant, because it's like season 1 is very good. There's a lot of shocking twists and turns in that. Yeah. So I'm very hesitant to watch season 2 because I'm like, well, I'm sort of like choosing to keep Promised Neverland on this sort of pedestal. Because I'm like, I know once I watch season 2, I can still, because I think it's because you can kind of separate them, but it's still a little bit like, I'm really worried it's kind of tainting my overall thought of it. Because like I remember I mentioned it. I think I mentioned that I watched the show on Twitter, and people were like, "Don't watch season 2. Read the manga." I think that's when I might have skimmed it. But I don't know. It's a shame because Promised Neverland is a really good show. It had great characters, so it's like for them, I guess where I'm coming from is like I understand the whole, because like it is made by. Like there was someone behind that. There's a team behind that, behind season 2, that poured their all into it. So I'm kind of like, on the one hand, I'm like, oh, I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I'm also like, I want to know the thought process of like where they went wrong, like why did they choose to cut things out, what kind of deadlines they were on, because you could probably get like, I want to say like at least 4 seasons out of The Promised Neverland. So for them to cut it off like this. Because wasn't the ending a slideshow? You said like she met God in a slideshow.
Yeah. So they return, or they stay in like the, I guess you can say hell. I don't know what you would call that. So they stay behind to like rescue all the kids, and it's like a slideshow. You have like, it's like back and forth between the kids that have escaped to the outside world it looked like they were in New York or something. I don't know. I just see like, it was like a shoreline with like, you know, a bunch of skyscrapers. It looked like New York. I don't know my cities. So it was that, and then
not New York.
I think I'm a few thousand miles away from New York, but it would be a back and forth from like those kids, and then Emma, Norman, and Ray, who are like, you know, rescuing the kids that are still stuck in the other farms. You know, they go from rescuing them from the farms, and then there's like an entire war that happens apparently. Who's the demon princess girl? I think she leads them against like the whatever empire. I just remember someone was dethroned. There was a huge war. Emma met God. Yeah, in the slideshow, Emma met God. It was like, I think it was like a dragon. He kind of looked like a dragon.
Yeah, and they're in like
I want to say,
like the area they're in looks like the opening to Attack on Titan season 3.
Yeah. It just looked. I was like, are they meeting God? I don't know. I don't know why. I feel like that could have at least been a scene, at least. You know, like
you could have spent a little bit more than. I should say 10 minutes because
God. It's the God of your show. You know, it's I think you should have put a little bit more respect on that at least. And I understand like 12 episodes isn't a lot, especially when you have so many events going on, like the what is it called, the Lambda Project, also trying to get everyone out. Meeting God it's a whole season, the whole Liberation War or whatever. I feel like that could be its own thing as well, but I think they had some
Paranormal Liberation War.
They had a little bit of trouble trying to condense that into 12 episodes, and yeah, I understand it would be a little bit difficult, but I think working on like, or having a huge part of the season be like, you know, leading up to that, I think they spent more time before Norman got there than they did on like the other parts of the show, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know,
but again, it makes me wonder why they didn't separate it into several seasons. Like, I thought season 1 did great, like, because it seemed like the overall general sense of Promised Neverland season 1 was that like, no, this show's amazing, you got to watch it. So it makes me wonder why they couldn't split it up into and just keep going with the show. I don't know. I'm not a businessman. I don't know what the executives are thinking. So it's I don't know. But to me, it seems like isn't it a worse business decision to rush a season 2 instead of taking the time to, because would you get more money because if that's what you're worried about, would you get more money for making more seasons? I'm like,
I kind of think of it like video games, you know. Recently, like, video game companies come out and they'll say, oh, we're gonna have to delay this game a bit just so we can refine it a little bit more. But I think where, you know, that kind of ties in with the shows is that you have, I guess you could say, the community. They're like, oh, we want this soon. Actually, I feel like everyone would want a more refined game, no? Would you say so?
Yeah, like, because like look at Cyberpunk 2077. That game has been talked about since, like, I think it was announced in 2013, and then it got delayed again and again. I think that's usually one of those games that it's like, is this not a case of they revealed it too early? Like, when it's been in development that long, and you have that many years of hype built up for it, so then when it comes out, I mean, Cyberpunk's a bit of a special case because it's like, I don't know how, like, it's not even like some people got a few bugs. It was like overall everyone had bugs with the game, like game breaking stuff. So it's like, I don't even know how you miss that kind of thing. But it's like, I understand they're under pressure from obviously the fans, but also there's like shareholders and shit like that have to make sure things are flowing.
I think even though you could come out and say, hey, this game probably will be delayed just so we can clean it up, I think there, like you said, there is that sense of pressure that, like, yes, even though we did come out and say that it will be a little bit later, we would still like to get, our product out. And I think that's kind of what I was gonna say Demon Slayer. That's kind of what The Promised Neverland kind of had. Like they had their set of time, but then I guess they couldn't really finish it.
Because what I'm thinking is that it's like they probably just had pressure from the higher ups to be like, no, you have to fit all of this into that thing, and they're like, okay, I guess we'll give it a try.
Kind of what I was thinking just now was like, what if they had? This is just an idea. I don't know if it's true or not. Probably not true, but what if they intended to have more seasons, or just like or at least a longer amount of episodes, like more episodes to work with. I think because it's where the pacing was like they had,
I think even if they had
episodes to like kind of work their way up to Norman, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think if they just gave themselves, well, I say that. I was gonna say, I mean, if they just gave themselves more time, but again, I think it is just a case of I don't know if they had the option of doing that, because what I'm thinking is they probably just had a lot of pressure to, like, just condense all of it into one thing. Because like for me as a consumer, it seems like the easiest thing would just be like, well, no, just like try and adapt as much as you can in those 12 episodes, but don't rush anything, and then just save it for season 3. But it's like that's also really easy for me to say because I'm like, I don't work at any of these studios. I'm not an animator or anything like that. I don't know what goes on with scheduling and things like that. So
I almost want to believe that they were like, while they were working on the episodes, they were told that, hey, you only have this amount of episodes now. I almost want to believe
like, I would hate to be that like director. Like I like that'd be so stressful. Like,
yeah, like oh, we only have X amount of episodes left to do, a lot of covering.
Because I almost wonder if they have like, or because I'm curious to know if while they were making it, were they like, this is terrible? Like as they were sitting there drawing out these frames, they're like, this is so bad. Like
now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think the pacing was like absolutely terrible. Like, yes, they condensed down like meeting God, the whole liberation thing, into like a slideshow, but I think what they did was they took their objective was to have everyone escape to the human world. I think that was the show in itself, and I think that's what people wanted to see. Like,
so they just wanted to get to their end goal. They just wanted to do it as fast as possible.
They wanted to get like this, like everything, the events leading up to like their escape. But I guess in their minds, maybe they process like, oh, hey, maybe we don't need all this stuff that happens after. We can just imply, or we can just, show them that, yeah, they were able to, liberate the world, overthrow the king or queen or whoever it is. And then everyone, does make it out. But like, sorry if you're tuning in and you're still spoiled.
I guess, spoiled. Yeah, we've been talking for like 20 minutes. I was just about to compare it to like, it's like the equivalent of like Avengers Endgame, if that was to slideshow, and it's like, they just it's fine, we can just brush over that. It's like Iron Man, I guess, spoilers for Endgame, but it's a long show, and it's like
I know he does. I haven't seen it, but I know he does the snap and then he dies.
Okay.
And then I read some theories that were like, I think it was a scene where it was like Doctor Strange, is that his name? He was like pointing up, and apparently, someone came up with the idea. Maybe he was pointing up to signal Iron Man or Tony Stark to like give the glove to Captain Marvel, so she can do it.
Oh, I absolutely think she could have I think at least what I took out of that is because Infinity War, he was like, oh, because he saw 14 million different variations of the world or of the future, and then he was like, we only win one, and I figured that's what that was. Like, okay, there's only one way we win this, and because he was like, oh, how do we win? Well, if I told you, it won't happen. And it's like, if I tell you you're gonna sacrifice yourself, he's gonna be like, fuck that noise. I'm not inventing time travel. I'm going home. So it's like, but he's in the moment, so now it's kind of like, oh, okay, fine. I've seen memes of that where it's like fly up, or it's like give me 1 second, I'll help you in a minute. Like I just gotta finish with this like tornado and things like that. And they're like, yeah, there's probably other characters. Like I mean, Hulk hasn't had another arm. He probably could have used the other arm to snap. But I think the other thing is that it's like there's not enough time. Like he had his nano stuff to switch things over, but I don't know, that's not anime. I'm sorry, I'm getting very off topic now.
It's okay. I heard everything you said. I also didn't process anything you said. Like I said, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know.
That's perfectly fair.
But yeah, I think the pacing, now that I think about it, it's not as bad as I think. You know, they got the kids out. I think that was their goal. You know, let's try to have the story work up to where all the kids escape. And then the rest could just be filler. It would be nice. It would have been nice if, you know, if it were all written out. But given the time that they had, I think that was okay.
It almost seems like one of those memes where it's like how to draw an owl. First, do a sketch, and then it's like step 2, draw the owl. it's like all right. So step 1, get the kids out. Step 2, or sorry, it's like step 1, get these kids out. Step 2, get everyone else out.
Well, I would argue that it's like the meme of them drawing the horse for like the front half of the horse is beautiful, and then the butt half is like complete doo-doo. You know?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But I think if you haven't watched The Promised Neverland, I would say you should read The Promised Neverland. If you don't like books, it's tough.
I mean, it's a picture book.
You should start liking books. Yeah, it's a picture book. There you go.
It's not too bad. I think season 1 is still definitely worth a watch, especially because it's very short. And there's a lot that goes into it that's very good. I also think Promised Neverland is one of those shows that, because it almost doesn't feel like an anime. If that, like, sorry, let me be more specific. It feels like one of those shows that it's like, if someone were to ask me like what anime should I watch, like I don't really care for cartoons or whatever, that's probably the show I'd recommend, because it doesn't have a lot of like, there's no fan service, there's not of like the typical anime like hijinks, I guess, if that makes sense. There's not like a lot of like, I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't feel like a typical anime. It's a lot more narrative driven and less like goofy antics and stuff. So it's I think it's more like good television.
And it has like season 1 had like that bit of like suspense in there too that I really loved. I think that was like, you know, the one thing that everyone liked about the show was like the little bit of suspense you had. But I didn't really get that from season 2. There wasn't really like oh my gosh, are they gonna get out of there like safe, you know? It was kind of like you were watching them do stuff, and then it was like, yay, wow, they got out of it. Like at that point, it was like, yeah, I think these kids are going to be smart enough to lead everyone out. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think anyone died. Not that I want them to die, but I think I would have liked if there was like a lot of risk. I'm not sure if that's from the manga or if it's, you know, just the way they wrote it, but it didn't really seem like they were in danger at all.
I mean, this is sort of getting off topic from Promised Neverland, but I think that's something I like about Attack on Titan so much, is the fact that it genuinely feels throughout the entire thing nobody is safe, because...
Oh, yeah, dude. Oh my gosh. Sorry to cut you off, but like watching I watched season 1 like a few months ago. And it was crazy, you know, because you had told me like, oh yeah, you like you think someone's gonna be okay, and then they're just dead the next second. Like you don't really expect it. And I'm like, okay, I think Matthew, you're like, you're exaggerating. So I watch I sit down, I watch the show. I'm like, oh yeah, this character's pretty cool. And then literally the next second they're dead, and you don't even have time to process it. They just keep going.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Attack on Titan season 1's on my list. Or honorable mentions. We're not even past honorable mentions yet.
Man.
Yeah, Attack on Titan's on my honorable mentions thing. Because I really like season 1. It had very good pace to it. Oh, I shouldn't say very good pace. It was good enough. There wasn't too many times where I was kind of like, okay, this is sort of boring. I want to move on to the cool Titan action.
Are you finished with your honorable mentions? Because we could actually segue to like the rest to the main meat and potatoes. If you're okay with that.
There's one more on my list. I have, like I said, Attack on Titan season 1, and the only other one was Evangelion, which I'll briefly, very quickly. It's a good show up until episode 20, and then it gets really, really bad. I haven't watched the movies yet, but Evangelion was pretty solid for what it was, and I was enjoying it, and then it just takes a really sharp left turn. The fan service in the show is a little, because like the characters are like 13. So it's like, or 14. That doesn't make it better, but so there's a lot of just really questionable things later on in the show, up until episode like 19, 20. There's like one moment earlier in the show that's very strange, but then it kind of gets back on track. It's basically just a fun like Monster of the Week show. Like if you like giant robots and stuff, it's really good.
Sick.
But then it takes a really strange turn, so it's like, so it's kind of like, it's a very weird show because I wouldn't recommend it, but I still enjoyed it, if that makes sense. But
yeah, it's like one of those. Do I say guilty pleasures? It's like it's a show. You could rate it like a 5.
Honestly, I'd actually argue that SAO is my more guilty pleasure because I'm like, it's like liking the Michael Bay Transformer movies. I like SAO, but I also feel I shouldn't. I feel like I'm getting
yeah, you kind of have, when you're talking to a friend, they're like, oh yeah, I hate SAO because there's so much new. It's like complete dude, and you're like, yeah, I agree. Meanwhile, you back at home watching SAO.
Yeah, when I was watching it again last October, and I got to the Gun Gale arc, I was like, okay, this is actually like kind of cool. Like I don't hate this, and then it got back to
it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool when you go back and watch something, or rewatching something for like that nostalgia.
It just one of those shows. Like when I was rewatching SAO, I'm like, there was parts because I remember. I guess it's just nostalgia. I remember where I was when I was watching these episodes. Like actually, quick funny story. If you've seen SAO, episode 24, Gilded Hero, the worst episode. I was on the bus watching that, and there was a kid behind me. There was a kid behind me that literally, because the part where he's like, she's chained up and he's doing creepy shit to her. That's where I was kind of like, oh, what's happening? And the kid behind me had been watching like half the episode with me, and he was like, what's happening? And I was like, what the fuck? I was mortified.
And from that day on, Matthew never took another bus ride home.
Well, I had to because I was staying at school, but I just never watched. I've yet to watch anime in public since then. I also haven't been in public, but still, I haven't even watched like clips or anything because I'm like, I was horrified. Like the kid was just, I think he was a little kid. He was just kind of like, is that a cartoon? I don't even think he understood what was happening. I just remember
I think you scarred him, Matthew. I think you might have scarred him.
Potentially, because he watched like, I don't know how long he was sitting there, but I assume he was there for like at least a little while.
But I think he'd be old enough now to watch that show. If you guys, how long ago was this? 5-6 years ago, I'd say.
No, like
3 years ago.
No, it was more like 4 or 5 years ago.
I think he'd be old enough to be watching anime, but yeah.
So anyway, so those are my honorable mentions.
You were saying, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say I had another dislike on there, but actually I'm gonna save that for another time because that's something I could talk about.
We should. For a very long time. My honorable mention really fast was Angel Beats. I didn't talk about this with you. Yeah, it's about a show where
it's about a show.
It's a show about these high schoolers are they're somewhere between, the physical world and the afterlife. They haven't exactly passed over yet, but they're all like in a school, and the main character, he's got amnesia. He doesn't know why or how he died yet. Obviously he finds out like in the end, but he wants to help everyone pass over, because everyone's stuck there. So the whole show is just helping everyone kind of get over their trauma, because it's their trauma that's keeping them from passing over. So he kind of helps them with like, their trauma, their hardships, and eventually, everyone quote unquote graduates. And the last episode really hit me hard. I cried. Like, I cried.
Have I cried?
It was pretty sad.
Anime yet? Oh, there is a show I cried at.
I think the first like anime slasher movie that I cried was the Pokemon movie. When Ash turns to stone and then everyone's like, Pika-Pee.
No. The only show that I've cried at, this is a weird one, was School Live. And I talked to you about that. It's the only one that I cried at. And is it School Live? Yeah, School Live is it's the zombie show I was telling you about.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
And I cried at that. I cried at the end. I was so mad. Because I didn't even realize I was crying until the episode had ended, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And then I realized I was sad.
I think it's the shows that make you cry. Like, they're good.
I think other than that, though,
you can't cry and hate a show. You know what I mean?
I don't think I've cried. I mean, Recovery of Mmo Junkie was sort of like, I was like tearing up a little bit because I was like, "Oh, this is adorable," but other than that, I don't think I've cried at any other show. But I've also only seen shonen anime, so.
Oh well. Speaking of just like shows that kind of like hit you. Actually, this is not a show that hits you at all. It's Horimiya. It's more of like what, romancy, I guess you can say.
The way you explained it, I'd say. I haven't watched it yet. I was gonna, but
it's a little bit more romancy. So it's this guy and a girl. The guy looks like a nerd, a loser. He's pretty quiet. No one really talks to him, And then the girl, she's like, she's super pretty. She's super popular. It's like those kinds of things you see like in public school. You got the quiet, nerdy kid, and then you got the pretty popular girl. But their lives are like completely different when they're out of school. So the guy, he actually, he's got tattoos, piercings, ties his hair back. He even, actually that's not true because he had his glasses on, but then the girl was like, "Oh, you should take your glasses off." So that's not true. I'm not going to mention that. But the girl, she's like, even though she's popular, she's pretty, she doesn't really hang out with like girls outside of school. Like a lot of girls, you'll see them like go to the mall, hang out with their buddies, but then she just goes straight home. She's like more responsible. She takes care of her little brother. She does like all the house chores. She has pretty good grades. She keeps up with her grades pretty well. That's one thing that the guy doesn't do. Even though he looks, he looks like he could be smart. He's got the glasses. He's quiet. He's actually pretty dumb. And so you've got like these opposite conflicting appearances, and I think that's what's really cool about the show is like, even though you look a certain way, it doesn't really mean that you are that sort of person. And it kind of goes on like the two meet and then they kind of click and then they start liking each other, and then the whole show is just like their development of like their relationship. It like progressively gets more romantic, and it's kind of cute. Some of the moments are like really cute, and then there are also like side characters that have their little romantic moments as well. So when you look at it from a whole, it's like really nice. Have you ever seen like Korean dramas?
I haven't. No. The closest I've gotten is like Squid Game.
That's like Korean like crap happens. People die. But yeah, it's like when you see like these little romancy things, it kind of like it gives you a standard for your own love / romantic life. It's like I would love if, you know, my life were to be like this, if I could meet someone like this IRL.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I think also, at least for me, in a lot of, this is gonna sound weird, but in a lot of shonen anime, they often dance around relationships because it's like, oh, do they like each other? Do they not? So it's like, it's very rare you see romance in animes. I think that might be another reason why I didn't hate SAO, because the relationship wasn't great. It was one of the highlights of the show. Because they get together.
It was like there was like a relationship, and then there was like, what do you call it? Is it a harem?
Oh yeah.
there's all the girls that he's ever helped, and they all like him.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of his sort of like perfect character sort of thing, or perfect. Where it's like, you know, he's super cool and he beats all the bad guys and all the girls love him, and it's like
that's ideally how people want to be viewed as.
That's like, yeah, that's what I wanted to be when I was like 10. That's how I wanted everyone to see me. And now it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's boring for a character now, because it doesn't make for good television.
I mean, do you like romance in anime? I mean, I know you've seen Recovery of the Mmo Junkie. That had like a little bit of romance. Do you prefer that? Oh, actually, I think I know your answer. I think you'd probably say you'd prefer like shonen anime elements, but I do want to know, do you like the romance that happens in it? Like, for example, speaking of My Hero Academia, the Gravity Girl and Deku.
Oh yeah, when I was watching the show, it annoyed me how much they danced around it, because it'd be like, just get on with it already. That was something I was thinking, because it's like, I
like when they touch on it though,
because I understand some stuff. I think they've handled it a little, or they've handled it semi decent. I think what could have been done better, I think the problem with their relationship in the show, is the fact that Uraka's whole character now is just, I like him and I want to be like him, and that's it. You know?
I think I don't think it's as like too bad, you know? Like, yes, her character is mostly like her like liking Deku, but it's also driving her. He kind of inspires her to be like a better hero. She sees him like, oh yeah, he's doing this and this, and then she kind of like takes inspiration from that, like, oh, I aspire to be like him, and she likes him because he's that kind of person. He's willing to like sacrifice his fingers doing the little flip finger flick thing, you know, to save people.
That sounds. Sorry, you're building up as this huge dramatic thing. It's like, he sacrifices his fingies to. Oh man. No, yeah, no, but I do agree. I think it could have been. Well, it's not perfect. I was just sort of like, there was a part of me that was just like, I was kind of like, just get on with it already. But now after watching some more shows, I realize that's just kind of how it goes. The only show that I think, and it's actually number 3 on my list, is Demon Slayer, because that doesn't really do that too much. I think the closest was like Zenitsu and Nezuko. But even then,
even then, it's not like to that level. Like, yes, Zenitsu has like a huge crush on Nezuko, but it's not.
But I also think he's just straight up horn dog. I
think they do that for like the comedic effect. It's not so much like a serious like, I really like her, you know.
I don't think it almost just kind of feels like it's just more for the shipping aspect, to get fans to sort of focus on something, if that makes sense. Because other than that, there's like no real romance.
There's not really like a shipping.
Yeah. My Hero Academia, as much as I love that show, it is plagued with it. Like, every character is shipped with somebody.
Yeah, there's just so many characters. I was thinking about it the other night. You know, I was taking a shower. I was, you know, thinking about like, oh, like what shows am I gonna want to talk about? And I was thinking like, a lot of shonen anime, they have tournament arcs, right? You have Naruto that has like the Chunin exams. Fairy Tail has like their little tournament. Hunter x Hunter has their tournament. A lot of shonen anime have tournaments, but when you're thinking about shows that are, I wanna say like life and death. When you have stuff like demons, like from Demon Slayer, or Titans from Attack on Titan. Stuff that could kill you. There's not really room for a tournament arc, but I think tournament arcs are just really cool in general. But just like being able to do without a tournament arc and still being like a really good show is like really cool.
I just mentioned that you made a good point about Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan being similar.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of shows. Yeah. There's a lot of shows like that where, because Demon Slayer is very Monster of the Week, for most of it. Because it has the typical anime training arc, because that's something that happens a lot. Sometimes the training arc for like a few episodes, and then sometimes like My Hero Academia, where it's like a training episode. But then also you could kind of make an argument that all of My Hero Academia is like one big training arc because they're in school.
I think they're always in training just because they're always learning something.
It's more like he has one episode in like 10 months where he gets yoked, and that's sort of his training arc. Demon Slayer has a training arc. And then, no, it didn't have a train. No, it wasn't a tournament. They had an exam episode arc kind of thing. And then where they became like full-fledged demon slayers, and they got the sword sent. So it wasn't really a tournament, but it was kind of like hey, don't die kind of thing. But what was interesting about that, and it really threw me off, is because I didn't know those characters were going to be important at all, because we saw all of them in that episode, and then they don't show up again for a while. Like Zenitsu comes back in episode like 12. And that was another thing that, because Zenitsu is my favorite character from the show. The animation is amazing, and that's another big reason why I like it so much. There's a show that I like the animation more, but Demon Slayer is very, very good.
I absolutely love the animation from Demon Slayer.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I really like Zenitsu's sort of like reveal, because there's a little bit of a hint of it when you see him at the training arc, because he gets to the finish line and he's like, man, I can't believe I made it. Like he's mad, or like he's upset that he survived, basically.
Yeah.
And then when you see him, you get caught up with him, and he's kind of like I was expecting him to be like a sort of like Mineta character, which he kind of is, but he's more like Kaminari in the sense of, sorry, I keep comparing everything to My Hero Academia. It's just like, I don't know, I just like that show.
No, it's all right.
But anyway, so he has a lot of, like, he does the typical, like, oh, please date me because I'm so cool. But I also like he's a bit more, he was relatable for me when I watched it, because he had this whole, like, I hate myself kind of thing. Because, like, I can't do anything right. And I'm like, no, I could definitely relate to that. But I also like the reveal he had where he's basically, like, up until, I think it's, like, episode 13. He's basically just the biggest bitch ever. And then when he falls asleep, he becomes an absolute god.
I thought that was just amazing.
Yeah, I really, really like that. And also just, it's a bit more believable because it's like he's not good at everything. He's not really good at anything. He's good at one thing and one thing only, but he's hammered that one thing to such a refined state that it's like, it can get him out of pretty much any situation. At least the situations that we've seen in the show.
I think moments like that are like really cool when you have a character that, you think is just ordinary, but then they come out with like something out of the ordinary.
I think that's some of the things, like that's some of the staple things that makes anime so great. Like Mob Psycho had a similar moment. Just to sort of like, there's a lot of like, it's pretty typical for characters to be like, actually, I'm getting a little off topic here, because that also goes hand in hand with, there's another character trope of characters being so strong, but you never see that the limit of how strong they are. So when you see those moments, it's really, really cool. I guess Deku's kind of in that sort of ballpark, where it's like he's pretty much just a normal dude, but then he does all this cool stuff. I mean, his reason for becoming a hero is sort of that, because like he runs out and goes to save Bakugo, and he's like completely quirkless, and he's like, "Oh fuck, I'm doing," but here I go.
I would say All Might. Everyone knows he's like super strong. He's like, I mean, he was literally the number one hero. But then like, he was just doing like, to him it just seemed like ordinary like crimes. Like he would just go and like save him. But then when it came to like, was it All for One? Is that his name?
Yeah, All for One and the Nomus, or the Nomu in episode 12, roughly.
So when he gets serious, right? I think that's even though he's literally the number one hero, there's still that sort of like, I guess you can say suspense, or like that little anticipation. That's like,
I think actually, sorry, I'll let you finish because I'm gonna go on a tangent.
Yeah, he pretty much like set the tone of, even though I'm the number one hero, I have limits. And those limits are being tested. And so actually the show even mentioned it, like they like everyone is pretty scared when All Might stepped down.
Oh yeah, because
it was like our symbol of peace is gone. Like, who's gonna step up?
Yeah,
Endeavor?
now the show's
been
talking about like the problems with putting so much. But putting All Might on a pedestal, that it's like they never consider the fact of like, well, what happens when he's gone? So it's like, but what I was gonna say, and it actually almost contradicts you. Now I feel bad, but something about All Might and Jujutsu Kaisen did this too, which is my number 2 pick. Which Jujutsu Kaisen being my number 2 pick, I'm kind of not 100% sure on, because I think there's still some rose-tinted glasses on that, because I literally finished that show like a week and a half ago. So it's like, it is a really, really good show, but I'm also like putting it that high on the list. I don't know. So that's one subject to change, but it is very, very good. But that character has an All Might, or that show has a character, or an All Might like character in the form of Gojo.
Is that the guy with like the mask on his,
the blindfold?
Bandana?
Yeah,
the blindfold. There you go.
Yeah, he's cool. But he and All Might had this sort of presence where it's like, because it's like they're set up as like, no, they're the strongest the show has to offer right now, and they gave this sort of sense of security when they show up. It's yet to happen with Gojo, I guess, spoilers, but it's yet to happen with him. At least that I don't know. I haven't read the manga, but All Might, he had this sort of sense, because like in episode 12, when everyone's getting like Aizawa's getting his arms snapped like twigs, and everyone's all scattered, and it's like, okay, we're kind of fucked here. And then as soon as All Might shows up, everyone's like, okay, we're good, we can chill now. And then even he gets pushed. That's I think what made some of that show, or made that show really interesting, because it's like I guess they set up early on that, I guess some characters have plot armor, but they set up early on that not everyone's safe, essentially. Because we've seen some pretty strong villains as well. So I like the way it's because this is an obvious by now. My Hero Academia is my number 1 pick. It's my favorite show, or my favorite anime, for a few different reasons. I really like how they handle the powers. Is very high on my list, because I've never seen like super strength, for example. It's like one of the most like, not boring powers. No, I know it can be boring. Because it's the first thing you think of when you think of superpowers. It's also it's also one of those things that it's kind of like the staple superpower. It's like, no, every superhero has this, because that was a big thing for a while. Just every superhero, it's like this is their main thing, but they also have super strength. But then this show used it early. I mean, a way I've never seen it. Because the show has a good way of balancing powers. Like Midoriya, for example, with One for All. He's insanely strong, but when he is that strong, he breaks all his shit. So it's like, I like that sort of drawback. There's some characters that we haven't really seen it, because like Todoroki, his whole reason for existing is kind of to get rid of Endeavor's weakness. So it's like when he gets too cold, he can just heat himself up, and when he gets too hot, he can just cool himself down. So it's kind of like his weakness is just like if he gets too sleepy. And then there's some other character like Bakugo. It's not really crystal clear how much power he can use, because like we've seen like when he's firing off explosions, his arms start to hurt, and I don't really know what that means. I assume it's implied that he's reaching some kind of limit. But another thing I really like about that show is the amount of characters, and that's also sort of a drawback, because it's definitely the anime that has, or that I've seen, with the most varied cast. There is, like, just in the one class alone, there's 20 characters. 20 separate unique characters with their own powers and everything. Which, again, also becomes a kind of a problem because, like, you look at some characters like the sugar guy, his quirk is also super strength. So then when he's in the same room as Deku, it's like, okay, cool, I guess. So I don't know. I really like how they use their different powers. And I think
sorry, you were saying.
Sorry, I was gonna say the reason why I think the show is very high on my list is because I watched it when I was pretty down. Because I knew I was gonna like it because I talked to you about it and you had mentioned it before. And it's like you had explained to me that's basically like superheroes. So I'm like I knew I was gonna like it because I love superheroes. So it's like, but then when I went to go watch it, I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I ended up liking it.
No, it's pretty good. I was gonna say you brought up how there were so many characters, and it could in a sense be a drawback. Like if you have a show that has way too many characters, it could end up being a drawback. But what I like about My Hero Academia is like they kind of set all the characters apart from each other. You can remember a lot of characters from My Hero Academia, and that's something that probably wouldn't happen in another show. No,
that's not easy to do, to make like 50, 60 different unique characters that are all named. Some characters blend into the background. But and then again, like I said, the reason why I said it's a drawback, or it can be a drawback, is because like you have a tough time balancing this character, because obviously the focus is on like Deku because he's the main character, but then also by extension like Todoroki and Bakugo. And there's like a handful of characters that they really focus on, but then it ends up leaving a lot of characters to kind of fade into the background. And now, I guess, spoilers for season 5. Now that Deku has Black Whip, it's kind of like, I mean, I think Sero himself, the tape guy, said himself was like, "Hey, you're gonna make me obsolete soon," which I think is kind of the problem, or as a bit, it can be a problem because then it's like, well, then what's the point of this character being here? So it's sort of, I don't know. I think Horikoshi's handled it pretty well. There's definitely some stuff that's gotten lost. And some characters have just...
I still think even though Deku is becoming that guy who can do like anything, he's got the Black Whip, so he's pretty much like the tape guy, and he's got super strength, which you said, beats out the sugar guy. But he's got a big nerf, which I think is nice. I'm glad that they have like a nerf on Deku, just because if he didn't have that nerf, I think he would pretty much just be everyone put into one.
I think that's one of like a key like character writing things is your character. If you're gonna make a character that's like all powerful, right, you need to give them some kind of drawback, and that's something, going back to Kirito, that's something he's lacking. He doesn't have any. He just always figures out a way to win. And I guess the argument can be made for Deku too, but like he breaks his bones when he uses too much power. So there's that sort of sense of urgency, or suspense when it's like he's fighting someone, he uses normal attacks and they don't do anything. So now it's like, okay, I gotta go to breaking my bones now. And then when that doesn't work, which is why I like the muscular fight so much, because he breaks all his bones and then that still doesn't stop him. It's sort of like, well, fuck, what now? And then with All Might, they have him, he's this all-powerful being, but he can only be that all-powerful being for like an hour. Gojo's a similar thing because he is, I guess this is kind of spoilers for the show, but not really. They make him all-powerful, but he's also, like, everyone in the show kind of, like, doesn't really care about him. He's kind of dumb. He's very, like, laid back and nonchalant. So it's like people are dying. He's like, oh, I'll get there when I get there. So it balances his character out because it's not like he's there at all times, but he gives the same sense to All Might when he shows up in a big fight. It's like, okay, we can rest now because he's here to save the day. So I don't know. It's one of those things that, like, because Midoriya is getting stronger and stronger throughout the show. If he gets to a point where he can just use 100% with no issues, he's going to be a very boring character, I think. in terms of when it comes to like fights, I think he'll become very boring. Because while I like the overhaul fight, it was very cool. He basically became an invincible god as soon as he started fighting him at 100% with no recoil. So I don't know. I guess I'm done my list now. I've just been ranting, and now my list is complete. So I'll let you take over. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say like with like Deku being like, you know, he's got the nerf on him, and you mentioned how like if he goes 100%, sorry, if he goes 100%, then, you know, he'd be invincible. But I haven't read the manga, so I don't really know like what's up. But what if he goes like past 100% and then he loses control? You know, like, you know how like he'll already lose control with like Black Whip.
Yeah.
Even though he's not at 100%, like what if that happens when he's like past 100%? I think that'd be really cool to see. I'm not sure if that's happened yet. Maybe. Just an idea.
I'm caught up in the manga, and I will say the manga is really, really good. I mean, this isn't a manga episode. I could talk about the manga because I do have a lot of things to say about that. But I remember when he was talking about, because I thought while he was in the muscular fight, he says 1,000,000%. And when I saw that, I was like, damn, that's a hell of a punch.
Dang.
But then the more I thought about it, I was kind of like, well, there's no way he did 1,000,000%. I remember looking it up because I was like, there's no way he did 1,000,000% because 100% can like take down a building. So 1,000,000, he's like leveling the forest. Like that's half of Japan gone if he's punching that hard. So I mean that would be sick because it's kind of like, because that's something that happens very often. Because didn't he even say that when All Might was fighting the Nomu? Because Deku was like in his head, he was like, I'm the only one that knows what's really happening to him, and right now he's punching him, and it's like he's using every punch is more than 100%. That's kind of a meme now. I've seen that so many times. But I don't know. It's kind of because that is a typical anime trope. Like in real life, it's like 100%. No, that's 100%. Like you can't go beyond 100%. But in anime, I mean, go even further beyond.
Anything is possible in an anime.
In anime, it's just like, fuck it. What are rules? Oh, excuse me. So I don't know. I mean, that would be sick because it's sort of. I can't talk about that. Damn it! I want to talk about the manga. It's so good. Once it's animated, I'm gonna have a field day.
Speaking of shows with manga, Netflix recently came out with a show called Eden Zero. It's pretty recent, within like the last year, I think. And it's from the makers of Fairy Tail. So if you've ever seen Fairy Tail, you'll recognize some of the characters you'll recognize some of the characters' design in Eden Zero. And they even did like a little nod to Fairy Tail. I think in one of the episodes, like you see Natsu and Lucy, you know, the two main characters from Fairy Tail. You'll see them in the show. You know, they're just walking out of the bar. You know, they're just chilling.
Right, really?
But yeah. So they're actually, let me get with the premise of the show. The show is about this guy. His name is, I think, Shiki. He was raised on a planet just filled with robots. And then one day, you know, they get a visitor who's the main character, Rebecca and Happy. Happy's like this little cat. And they visit.
Right. Sorry.
Isn't
that the cat's name in Fairy Tail too?
Exactly. They reuse a lot of the characters. You know the little I don't know if you watched that far, but you know the little dog? That's not a dog, it's actually a snowman.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen
no?
it yet.
Okay, so
the last thing I watched was Natsu fighting some gorilla. And like,
that's pretty early.
I think it's like episode 2.
Yeah. But the girl visits the planet, and then I forget what happens. She's just there. She's pretty much like a vlogger. So she's like there. She's visiting like a new planet, and then the whole idea is like they go on adventures together, and Shiki is trying to find this entity called Mother, who resides like outside of like the cosmos or like the galaxy. It's like a space themed anime, but what's really cool is like they kind of tie in some like magic elements as well. So like inside some of their bodies, they have what's called ether, which I guess is like their magic source. And you have some of these characters that can utilize this ether to like, do some cool stuff. And it's really familiar with Fairy Tail. Fairy Tail being, I would say, my top pick, just because it has like that nostalgia feel. It was like the first anime I've watched, and I've stuck with it for like the 10 years that it's been going on. But like it kind of has like that familiar Fairy Tail sense. But actually, I might even contradict myself and say that Eden Zero might be a little bit better than Fairy Tail, just because they don't include a lot of like the sexual like stuff that you would see in some animes. That's kind of like the drawback with what I had with Fairy Tail. Like, yes, they had really cool fighting scenes. I really love the tournament. I keep going back to the tournament arc because they pretty much pitted characters that you want to see, like you as the viewer want to see like together. So like you have like dragon slayers, which is like a rare type. Dragon slaying magic is like a rare type of magic, and like you have these individuals that are dragon slayers. They'll go up against each other, because that's what people want to see, and I think it's really cool that Fairy Tail had like that tournament arc. But one thing that like was kind of like I could kind of get past, like I kind of don't want to see this, but I'll keep watching just because it's the show I want to watch, was like the nudity, all the like all that sort of stuff. Even in like the tournament, there was like a little swimsuit photo magazine kind of battle thing. It was like they were kind of like showing off like and whatnot, and they were like, oh, whoever loses has to post nude on the Sorcerer Weekly, which was like their their magazine. And I was like, I
think I remember the Sorcerer Weekly being mentioned in episode 1 or 2.
Yeah, it's like their magazine. But yeah, that whole tidbit was weird because it was like they were just in swimsuits for like a solid few minutes, and then they were like, let's just settle this with a fight, and then one of the characters just like beats the other in like 2 seconds. It's really cool. You were saying?
I was just gonna say, I think that's actually probably the biggest drawback I have with My Hero Academia is some of the fan service stuff can get a little in the way. I've seen shows with worse fan service, but it's also, I can absolutely recognize that, especially because I've watched so many shows that like Attack on Titan, Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer didn't really have any.
No,
did it? I didn't think it did. So it's like, and it's now like when I see it, it's like since so many shows have proven that you can make a great show without any of this fan service. I mean, I could have told you that before. It's like, because it's like when it happens, there are some shows that when it does fan service, it makes you really uncomfortable, like Sword Art. And there's shows that do fan service, and it's like, okay, that didn't need to be there, but moving on. And I think that's kind of, in some ways, what My Hero Academia does. But it's still, when it happens, it's just like, I can recognize that this never needed to be here. So, yeah, anyway, sorry, that's all I have to say. It's probably...
Yeah, no, you're fine. But Fairy Tail does, it does it a lot, and... For a show, that like has so many pros for me, I know like a lot of people might not like Fairy Tail as much as I do, but it's got like magic, it's got like dragons. I love dragons, it's got like they're like guild systems, going back to like when I was younger, I'd play MMOs, and then you have like guild systems kind of like that. So it's like, oh, this is like everything that I like in just one show. And then you've got the nudity in like the fan service and such. But what Eden Zero does really well, and is kind of like the reason why I'm like, maybe this is better than Fairy Tail, is because it has all of like those elements, like there's magic, there's like a guild system, there's also like space time travel, which I don't really like as much as like I prefer like the fantasy world over like space and time world, but they actually like ever since I've watched Eden Zero, I've like grown to appreciate and like space time themes more. But what they do is they don't have as much of like that fan service. I mean, there were like some parts of the show, I think, yeah, at one point a lot of the vloggers, I think they're called beekeepers, so a lot of like the female beekeepers were captured, and they were captured by this guy who he's like some sort of alien, but he uses them as furniture. Like he'll so first he'll wash away like their clothes and such with like some sort of, it's like a foam, it's like a soap that kind of dissolves all their clothes. And then at that point I was like, okay, this is already weird.
It's moments like that when it's like, I'm like, thank God I have a lock on my door. You know?
Yeah.
Like it's things like that. I'm like, oh, it'd be terrifying if someone like
the show. But the show also identifies that it is, you know, creepy. I mean, yeah, it's like it's a villain, and it happens on like a planet where like a lot of crimes happen, but no one cares because everyone's doing crimes. It's like the most crime-filled
Gotham
planet.
City.
Yeah, but there's no like vigilante like Batman, you know. So all these beekeepers are like stuck there, and like all their clothes are dissolving. And then at one point, like, they're all just naked, just trying to, like, escape. They use the soap. They discover that, oh, it doesn't work on the metal that's, like, you know, confining them to the room. But there was, like, a window that was, like, really high up. And you're like, oh, let's, like, all make a little pyramid and, you know, get up there. And it's bad because they're all naked. And so it's just like a pyramid of like naked beekeepers, and it's like, okay, this is kind of weird. I mean, they're all like, their parts are like covered in soap to like censor everything, but just like the idea is like, this is a little bit fan servicey, but I'm glad they don't do it as much as Fairy Tail. And yeah, I actually nailed my top 2 in one go, which is pretty nice. And I like that they're from the same creator as well. I think I might also try, there's another anime from I think his name is Hiro Mashima. He's the guy that, you know, he's the guy that wrote Fairy Tail and Eden Zero. He also wrote Grave Master. And I also want to try to watch that as well. So that's on my list. But yeah.
Just quickly mentioning or going off what you said a little while ago, with why you like Fairy Tail, because it encapsulates pretty much everything you, or like a lot of things you like, and I mean, it just hit me. That's probably why I like My Hero Academia so much, because I've always grown up with superheroes. I mean,
my guy's got like a whole shelf of superheroes behind him. I mean,
and then just slightly above, I have a bunch of anime figures. That's Deku and Bakugo up there. So it's, I think
like, when you were asking me about like what animes you should watch, I think the first thing I mentioned was My Hero Academia, just because you really liked superheroes, and look, it's like your favorite anime like right now.
And that was the thing, is like I put it off for so long because I'm like, well, I know I'm gonna like it when I sit around to watch it, when I get around to watch it, but I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I did. But I don't know, it did. I mean, I could talk about My Hero Academia for literal hours, and now it's like, now that I've read, it's also like I finished season 4. And like, cause I watched all My Academia in just a few days, and then I watched the movies, and I watched all the OVAs, and I watched a bunch of behind the scenes stuff, and I was kind of like, well, now what? I've seen it all. And then I started reading the manga because I figured out that was a thing, and then I was like, wait, the story has gone on for another, like, you know, like all this time. So I'm like, well, I'm missing out on all this stuff. So then I read through all of it, and I think it's why when season 5 came out, I wasn't like rushing to my seat to watch the next episode. Like, there'd be times where I'd go like a month without watching it, and I'd just sit down and watch all 4 and all the episodes I missed in one go, because it was like, well, I've read all this now. It was cool seeing the stuff that I read be animated, because it's like, hey, I recognize all this. And there's some things I think the anime did better, and there's some things I think the manga did better. So I don't know. So now I'm a little nervous for season 6, because I'm like, I don't want to become one of those people that it's like, well, it's not perfect, so because like My Villain Academia, there was a lot of things that were lacking. Well, like people were losing their minds over My Villain Academia because they're like, it's not exactly like the manga. But it's like that's. I
still would say they did pretty well, and I feel like even though it might not be like a carbon copy of the manga, I still think like the creators of My Hero have the potential, like they have more tools to like kind of get all of that out.
Well, the other thing is that they were working on the movie at the same time. I haven't seen that yet, but they're working on the third movie at the same time as season 5. So it's sort of like, okay, there's a bit of leeway there. I think also the other thing, this is getting a little bit off topic. I see it so often on Twitter, and not just with anime, but people in general getting so mad about things not being adapted properly, like with Marvel movies and different things, or like not even Marvel movies, but like movies that have been adapted from books. It's like at the end of the day, we're like losing our minds over essentially a cartoon.
It's like the smallest detail. Yeah,
it's like, but it's also just like if season 6 comes out, I'm very excited for season 6. I love the Paranormal Liberation arc, war arc. It was amazing. I started reading the manga like towards the end, so I didn't have to wait week to week for the chapters. I got to read it all in one go, and now I've been reading week to week for the last like almost year. So it's like, you know, it's I just completely blanked. What was I talking about?
You were talking about season 6.
Oh right, I'm very excited for season 6. But also if it's not perfect, because I think it's also kind of what's your definition of perfect. I personally don't think it's an unattainable thing. Like I don't think perfection's real, I guess.
Right.
So it's like I'm excited to see it animated because I'm like, well, once like, you know, it's all in color and all the voice acting's there and all the music's there, and also just seeing it animated, it's more appeasing to the human brain, or appealing to the human brain. So it's like I think no matter what they do, I think they'll be fine because like
I think it'll be great. I mean, yeah, if you've read the manga, you might have some bias, or not bias, but maybe some things to say about it. But then like coming from someone who only watches like the anime, like I haven't read any of the manga, I still think My Hero Academia is like really good.
Like Bones have proved several times that they can make a good show. They've proven it 5 times that they can make a good show. So it's like I'm not too worried with, and like if they just draw from the source material even a little bit, they'll be fine. So it's like I don't know. I'm not too worried about where My Hero Academia is going.
I think as far as like adaptation goes, like the most important things for me is like you still get that sense of like excitement. You know how like when you're reading the manga, there are like some parts that are like, wow, this is like getting pretty intense. You know, you want to have like that. I think if you replicate that same feeling into the anime, even if you like miss a few details, if you still evoke like that sense of like anticipation, suspense, I think they would nail it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very excited for My Hero Academia, or season 6 to come out. Because I think, I don't know, just rehashing the same stuff. Because I do think it will be very good. I have faith in Bones now that it's like, I think the other thing is that I might have sort of, I think I do have bias because it's like, it's one of those things where I like this thing, so it's kind of like they can do no wrong sort of thing. So like even if My Hero Academia, actually Jujutsu Kaisen's a better example. I just finished watching that right now. If you were to ask me what's wrong with the show, I can't tell you because I'm like I have no idea, because it's like it's fresh in my mind. I still have the rose tinted glasses on where I'm like, well, that was so great that I'm like nothing comes to mind, and I'm like that doesn't mean the show is flawless. I just can't tell you right now what I disliked about the show. So it's like, but My Hero Academia, if you would have asked me back in December, I would have said nothing. The show's perfect. But now it's like, no, I can see that there are issues with it. I think there's some issues with some of the characters as well, beyond just the fan service. I just think that's the bigger issue. My voice just cracked because my throat's getting very dry.
This is a slightly slightly off topic, but it's still kind of on topic. My girlfriend is a film major, and sometimes when we're watching stuff, she'll kind of she'll mention something like, oh, like I really like this, like how they animated this or how they did that, or sometimes she'll say she hated it, so whenever I'm watching stuff with her, it's really cool when I hear like what she says, because when you're watching something for the first time, you don't really notice stuff until you like watch it for like a second time, then you start picking up like on the details. So that like when I'm watching with her, it's kind of like that sort of thing where she can pick up on some of the details, because she's like studied that sort of thing. She studies like how things are animated, how things are presented, and I forgot where I was going with that.
That's perfectly fair.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk
I think we're starting to run out of steam. We've been recording for an hour, or this is going for an hour and 40 minutes.
No, this is we've made some good coverage, I think. Especially for our first episode.
A lot more than I was expecting. I genuinely thought we were going to talk for like 30 minutes and be like, so what do we talk about now? Like, I thought I was going to rush through, because like my list is like, number 1, My Hero Academia, power system, interesting, powers, cool. Watched when I was sad. Like, that was my list, and that's what I thought I was going to like very briefly touch on and then just keep going. Because I don't think there's anything I missed on my list. Well, there's one thing, but I said I was going to say that for later, because I'm going to save that for the things I don't love kind of thing. Because that list is not very long, but what is there I could talk about for a while.
I don't think there's I don't really have like a really big list of shows that I hate.
I think the reason, because I agree, and I was thinking about this while we were talking about it. I think the reason why is like there's been a few shows that I've watched, like Combatants Will Be Dispatched. I watched that episode. I watched episode 1, and I was like, this is kind of dumb, and I never watched it. I haven't gone back, because I'm like, well, if I didn't like it, I'm not gonna force myself to sit through it, kind of thing. I think it's also the reason why I haven't finished like Hunter x Hunter yet, and things like that. Like, there's just some shows that I'm like, well, if it didn't hook me, I mean, the other problem is I'm comparing everything to My Hero Academia. So when it's not like My Hero Academia, I'm like, well, it sucks then. So I think because like if you look at my list of shows that I like, a lot of it, like Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero Academia, are very similar to each other. Demon Slayer, there's even elements of that are pretty similar to it. So it's kind of like there is sort of a general sort of, you can see that there's a general, I guess, sort of style that I like. Yeah. Essentially just shonen battle anime. I like seeing cool shit. I like seeing strong guy and strong guy punch each other, basically. I am the most caveman brain when it comes to anime. Like, I just want to sit down and turn my brain off and watch cool things happen.
Actually, now that I'm hearing that, I'm actually surprised that you haven't seen like any of the like Dragon Ball Super or anything, because like they have some really like intense fighting scenes,
I mean, that's also kind of going into like, there's some shows that I see myself never watching just because of how long they are. Like a lot of the big shonen anime like Bleach and One Piece and Naruto. There's probably others. But those for sure, I genuinely don't see myself ever sitting down and just watching 1,000 episodes of One Piece. I'm not saying it'll never happen.
I heard Detective Conan has like over 1,000 episodes as well. I heard that from my boss. I was like, wait, what? Really? I never thought Detective Conan would be like over 1,000 episodes. When you think of like shows with like long runtime, you think of like One Piece.
I thought One Piece was the longest running show. Sorry, this is way off topic, but now I'm really curious to see what anime has the most episodes. Holy shit! I'm gonna butcher this. Saze-san, 7,500 episodes.
Dang.
Well, it says 7,500 plus, and then just after or behind that is, I won't be able to pronounce that, but like the next in line has 2,240. I thought One Piece was the, I guess the more you know. 7,000 episodes?
People don't really remember those because they're not like as they probably don't have as much like prominence. Like I've never heard of those shows.
Yeah, 7,000 episodes. Oh my lord, that's insane.
I think for a show to have like a really long runtime and still be really successful is like really.
That's definitely you have to have. And that's the thing. It's kind of like, well, One Piece is probably it has to be a good show if it's gone on for 1,000 episodes.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I can't even. I don't even know if the manga is done. So it's like that's probably at like chapter 4 million by now.
It's one of those shows that will forever be on like the I might watch this, but
essentially
honestly you might never watch it just because of how daunting it is, you know, like 1,000 episodes. So I'm probably never gonna finish this, you know.
There's shows that like Black Clover is like 150, I think, and even that I'm like, oh, that's a lot of episodes to watch. I watched My Hero Academia, which was 80 episodes at the time, in a few days, but I got through that but I literally did nothing else. I sat right here doing dick all but watch that show for 4 days straight. Like I would only like pause it to go like pee or whatever, and like maybe grab a snack. But like for the most part, I sat right here and watched the show, and I hated it. Like as I was doing it, I was like, oh my god, this show is amazing. Or after I was done, I was like, I hated that I did that. I really wish I would have like paced it out better. And I've done that now with like shows like Demon Slayer. The last show that I watched all in one sitting was Promised Neverland, but also because it was 12 episodes, so it's like I can spare 5 hours to watch the show. So
I think that's the appeal of like shorter shows with like not shorter episodes, but like not as many episodes as like, oh, I'm able to like finish this.
Well, it's maybe I just have commitment issues, but it's like it feels like it's just less of a commitment because it's like, to me, the way I look at it is I'm like, okay, I could start Black Clover. I think it's more FOMO because I'm like, the amount of time I'm going to sit like watching Black Clover, I'm going to spend the next 2 months watching it. I also think in a way of like, okay, I'm going to start this show. This is the only show I can watch for the next month. And that's sort of where I'm at because I'm like, because I know for a fact as I'm watching Black Clover, let's say, there's going to be a moment where I'm like, well, what if I like I'm on episode 70. I could have watched like 4 other anime in that time, you know? So it's sort of like, well, is it worth sitting down and watching this one specific anime? I'm bugging out now. Or if I should, you know, I could watch like 5 really short ones. It'll add up to be the same thing, but my brain is like, oh, we got more, I don't know what the word is, more, not enjoyment, but more like, I don't know, it feels more like almost more efficient, I guess, you know, because I'm like, my brain is like, well, the more anime I watch, the better, you know, instead of like, I don't know, it's weird. So it's like, because there's a lot of shows that, like I said, there's a lot of shows I want to watch that have insane episode lengths, but it's like, if I'm being honest with myself, the chances of me actually watching it are pretty slim, because My Hero Academia is the longest, and even that, I was like, I didn't really like that I did nothing else but watch that show.
I think it'd be good if like you were keeping up with a show like as it's airing. So like if you like since you're caught up with My Hero Academia, I think it'd be a lot better for you now, because all you have to do is just like wait each week for like an episode, you know?
Yeah, like Jujutsu Kaisen, that was 24 episodes, and I watched that over the course of like 2 weeks, I think. And I had a weird moment when I finished that, because I was like, I mean, if this was My Hero Academia, I would have finished this season in a day.
Was My Hero Academia like the first anime where you had to wait for some of the episodes? You did binge like a lot of My Hero Academia, but then at one point when you got up to like what, season 4, season 5, you did wait weekly for episodes?
Season 5, I was waiting week to week. But the other thing is I also watched the dub, so I had waited longer for the episode. I think Attack on Titan might have been the first one. It depends on when the final season came out. I think it was Attack on Titan, the final season, because I was waiting for those to come out week to week. So that might have been what I watched when I was waiting for first.
Yeah,
those I was watching as soon as they came out.
My first one was literally like, you know, Fairy Tail. Like I caught up with Fairy Tail, and then Fairy Tail had like a huge like gap I don't know if it was like a few years or something, but there was definitely like a bit of time. So I was able to like catch up and everything, and then I was like, oh wait, now I have to wait for like episodes. And I think at that point I started to enjoy anime like a little bit more, because I would, it would just like have me waiting for the next week and so forth.
The other thing with anime is that, at least for me, especially right now, I need to watch it in like moderation. Because I'm like, every once in a while I need to stop and like kind of remind myself that real people exist and it's not all just cartoon people. So it's like, for me, I'll binge watch anime for like a month and then I won't watch it for a month, if that makes sense. Because like earlier this year I was watching anime left, right, and center, and then during the summer I barely watched anything. So I don't know, and now I'm getting back into it, so it's like, now I'm gonna watch cartoon people fight for the next couple months until I go back to watching real people fight. So I don't know. Anyway, that's just me. Hello, Zuko.
Like, now that I think about it, I actually watch a lot more like animated stuff, like anime, cartoon, a lot more of that, more so than like, what would you call it, real life stuff. Like, I don't watch reality. Yeah, I don't watch.
Well, for me, I usually like I'll go watch like YouTube. And then once
that's about as close to reality as I'll get is YouTube.
But the other thing is, like, I also really like anime. I hope I don't rant too long. The other thing about anime is that it's always like crazy, not out there ideas, but in Western comics, the general gist of it, not saying there isn't interesting things, but like with superpowers, it's usually like Superman, he can be cool, but there's a lot of comics where he's fucking boring. And then My Hero Academia, with all the different power systems and everything, that's not something I feel like I would have ever seen in Western comics. And it's like, I find anime always has really cool, like what you were talking about, Angel Beats. I'm like, I've never heard of that concept in my life, and there's always these crazy, wacky concepts that are really, really cool. But like, if you explain The Promised Neverland to someone out of context, it sounds so fucking weird. It's like, yeah, a bunch of kids being raised for demon as cattle, basically. It's like, yeah, that sounds weird. But I don't know. I think that might be why I like anime so much, is just the out there ideas. Not out there ideas, but I don't know.
But they make interesting. But they make it work.
Yeah, I think actually, like, so like there's a lot of Western shows where it's like how many shows have you seen, like Riverdale, for example. It's kind of just blended down to be the same thing. There's a lot of shows where it's like how many shows are like what's called CSI. There's so many shows that are basically just carbon copies of that. And anime, it's like, there's anime that I've watched and I'm like, that kind of reminds you of that, like Jujutsu Kaisen, that kind of reminded me of My Hero Academia. But usually there is enough differences between them that it does always feel like a new show. But like, you watch any show in the CW, it's like, no, I'm watching a CW show. And it's like, because they're all the same sort of, I don't know, not carbon copy of each other, but they're all too similar that it feels like I'm just watching the same show with different faces over and over again. And
sometimes they'll even, like, for CW shows, they'll kind of have like a, what do you call them? Are they like crossover episodes? Yeah. They'll have some characters go into like the other universe and vice versa.
I will say that'd be cool if anime did that. It might have, but I think that'd be sick.
But yeah, that's just going off like what you were saying. Like, they're so similar. Like, yeah, they're so similar that like their universes are literally the same universe.
Yeah.
They could just go into each other's shows like that.
So I don't know. I really like anime as a whole. If that hasn't been obvious for the last like 2 hours.
And that's why we have a podcast.
I can't promise every episode will be 2 hours. But also they might be more than that.
We were talking about The Promised Neverland for I think over half an hour, or
I think it was like 20, 25 minutes, something like that, 30 minutes. It was a
and
while.
Then I saw the timestamp, and then I was like,
because we were talking
for longer than an hour.
Yeah, we were talking about our honorable mentions for the first hour. And then it was kind of like, all right, we haven't even gotten to the rest of the list. And even then, there's plenty of other shows that I want to talk about, which I guess, like you said, is why we have podcasts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that's a good stop.
It's a good place to wrap up. Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, weekly episodes, every weekend. So it's between Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm Hydrus. I have a YouTube channel. I play games. He's Davis. He has a YouTube channel. So
I used to play games. I'm inactive.
I haven't heard that name in a long time. So yeah, you can check us out there. We also have Twitters and stuff. So you get updates about this. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. We're just gonna talk about a whole lot of anime. So if you guys have suggestions for stuff, please let us know.
Yeah.
So yeah, is there anything you want to add?
Just thank you for listening.
Yeah, if you listen to this entire thing,
thank you.
Yeah, you're an absolute Chad. So yeah, that pretty much does it. So
tune in to the next episode of the Shumatsu podcast.
Yeah, where we're gonna talk about probably more anime, and I'm probably gonna mention My Hero Academia at least once. I feel like I'm gonna mention it every episode until the end of time. So
it's only right. It's only right.
Oh man. Anyway, so thanks for watching, everyone. Right. We'll see you later, or I guess listening.
All right. Bye.
Bye.